Hey, it's Liza Lawrence here with Wonders and Miracles podcast. This is episode 142, relying on our own strength versus relying on God. What does that balance look like? First of all, before I get into my mini message, I just want to acknowledge all the things that are going on in the world, especially right now with Russia and the Ukraine. And I'm praying for both countries, honestly, and all those that are suffering and that are defending their freedoms. I really hope that the Spirit of the Lord can comfort those involved in this conflict. And I know that God is in charge. I do know that. And I know that sometimes things have to be shaken up before they can improve and become better. All right, on to my mini message. So last week, Allison, my guest on my podcast, shared how she was really wondering about when we see God's miracles. So often, maybe we rely on our own strength and we don't see that God's hand is in our lives until we absolutely need it and we have nothing else to rely on from ourselves. So this made me think about how often do we do that in our lives? How often do I do that where I rely on my own strength and my own resources and my own understanding to get through something versus really including and relying on the Lord to help me? Is there a balance in that? Is there a dance between God and us, or is it all us, or is it all God? So as I was pondering that this week, the scripture came to my mind, and this is one of my favorite scriptures in Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 and 6. And it says, "Trust in the Lord with all thine heart and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths." And that scripture kind of lays it out for us. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he will direct you. So I think that balance of relying on my own strength versus relying on the Lord has to come. The Lord comes first, and I trust in him. I rely on him. His ways are higher than my ways. And then I will be inspired to take action within my own gifts, talents, strengths. But God has to be the instigator of that versus I'm going to do everything I can to get through this. And maybe if I need help, I'll call on God. And I think that order needs to be opposite. We call on God always, and then we're inspired to get through the hard things. You know, we live in a fallen world. This was by God's design, and we wanted to participate in the difficulties that we would experience down here. I truly believe that. I think we wanted these because we knew we wanted to grow and learn. And the only way we could truly learn the things we really needed to for our own spiritual development was to experience the opposition in all things, to experience that tension between the human self, that ego, the natural man, and the God self that we innately are, our spirit self. And we needed to learn how to work together in this fallen world. And so I think we came here for this experience. It doesn't make it easy, though. It can be very, very challenging. It can be very, very heavy. And that's the nature of this planet. You know, the Lord knew that would be the way it is, that this world would be heavy to our spirits, and we could feel weighed down by it, which in turn invites us. It's like the catalyst that invites us to call on God for help, to rely on him versus ourselves. In Matthew chapter 11, verses 28 through 30, Jesus says this. He says, "Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for I am meek and lowly in heart, and ye shall find rest unto your souls." The only way we can, I think, personally get through this life with any sense of joy and peace is to not rely on our own strength, but to rely on God's strength to guide us in this life. I want to share a personal experience, and I have shared this on the podcast when I talked about the miracle of us moving and building a house. But this was a couple years ago, right at the beginning when COVID hit in the United States and everything was locked down. I was feeling the weight of everything and things that were going on in my world at that time. The school system was shut down. Many of you know what that felt like to have all of your children come home, and now they needed to do things online. I was also teaching classes at a university, and I needed to revamp every one of my classes, face-to-face classes, to an online format and to the Zoom format. And how will I change my assignments and in-class work? And so many details to just like figure out, right? Those of you who are teachers had that same sort of pressure. All of a sudden, everything's online. How are you going to revamp your curriculum? At this time as well, we were building a home, and hundreds of microscopic decisions needed to be made. And while these are kind of first world problems, and I understand that, it was still a very heavy burden. So the stress of that, the stress of all my children home, we were living in a trailer at that time. So I remember one day I had just sort of hit my burnout limit. And my cute 16-year-old daughter at the time said, "Mom, you know, there's such a thing as decision fatigue, don't you?" And I was like, "Is that a real thing? I think I have it." Too many decisions piling onto me. But I just remember also feeling the fear and the weight and the anxiety of COVID around me and all the people around me, and the contention that was happening, and the frustration with the lockdowns. I'm a very sensitive, emotionally sensitive person, so the weight of all that as well was just bearing down on me. And honestly, I felt crushed. I was feeling completely burdened and crushed by all the things that were piling on at that time. And I remember hitting that burnout moment and just getting in my car and driving away. Like, I got to get out of here. And I knew I couldn't go anywhere. Things were shut down. So I went up to a parking lot, and I was overlooking the whole valley of my town. I was sitting there and I was just praying and crying and begging God to help me with my burdens. And I heard very clearly, "You don't have to carry this alone. You've forgotten to let me help you." And instantly I thought, "You're right. I have forgotten to invite you into my life. I've forgotten to include you in the weight that I'm carrying." And I had this visual of taking all that weight off of my own body system and my spirit and handing it over to the Lord and giving him my burdens. "Come unto me, all ye that are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Let me help you carry your burdens," is that invitation. And trust in me, trust in the Lord with all your heart. And don't try to do it by yourself. Don't lean into your own understandings. I'm here for you. I can help you. And I want to help you in all things. And instantly it was such a beautiful experience, because as I handed that burden over, that spiritual, energetic, emotional burden over to the Lord, I felt an instant lift. It was as though I could breathe again. Like, okay, God is with me. He's on my side. And very next day, I saw miracles unfold in my life. But how often do we do that? How often do we feel like we have to carry everything by ourselves, do it on our own, rely on our own strength, and we're not inviting and including the Lord in those daily experiences and in our daily life? So what burdens are you carrying on your own right now that you can give to the Lord and let him help you carry them? How can you invite and include God more in your daily life? What would that look like for you? So let's ponder those things this week, and let's practice inviting God into our lives in all things, and then pausing to see what direction he gives us. God knows us individually. He does know our strengths. He knows our gifts. He knows what we came to do, and he can inspire us to take the correct action for us personally. So that's my message this week. I hope you have a great week. We'll talk to you next week with another beautiful interview on Wonders and Miracles podcast. Bye-bye.